never misled Parliament, but the Leader of the Opposition has repeatedly misled Parliament, and in fact, Parliament has resolved that Mr. Feetham has misled Parliament.
By government majority.
Lied in Parliament after a detailed debate on the subject where I said that every government minister was free to vote exactly as they wished, and every member of the opposition was free to vote exactly as they wished. But look, on this issue, Mr. Feetham needs to put his thinking cap on for once. He needs to earn the money that the people of Gibraltar pay him to be Leader of the Opposition and actually stop trying to simply vent his frustration at his own failure to be able to get his points across. I have told Parliament repeatedly that the Europa Stadium will not cost the taxpayer because there will be a loan to the GFA and the GFA will be repaying that money with UEFA funds. I was asked how much money the government had paid towards the UEFA Stadium, not how much the government had lent. I gave the money we had paid for our own account, and Mr. Feetham didn't get up and ask me any supplementary questions about what the borrowing that I had previously referred to might have been. So really, this is Mr. Feetham's own failure, and what you're saying is him kicking and screaming, throwing his toys out of the pram, because once again, he's got it completely wrong.
The Chief Minister has spoken for the first time about plans to create a non-civil service department to deal with the human resources needs for all government agencies, authorities and companies. Fabian Picardo stressed the proposal is not one to restructure the civil services HR department. He also denied allegations it was his intention to install a member of his team at number 6, Michael Crome, at the head of the new department. Fabian Picardo spoke to GBC's Viewpoint, which features Gibraltar's 3 unions.
Michael Crome is my industrial relations advisor as well as being my MOD advisor, and already we've saved millions of pounds by him being on board with the government of Gibraltar and helping us to understand how our relationship with the MOD needs to be recalibrated in some of the things that the MOD charges for. So that's a resource that has been hugely positive to the Gibraltarian taxpayer. What I'm asking Michael to do, and the GGCA will be the first to understand that he's a person who gets things done, is to establish this new capability. But not to go, because I need him with me to deal with industrial relations issues and MOD issues. Once it is established, then the posts that there may be there will be open for competition at the top or throughout.
The Gibraltar Regulatory Authority has published a new code for broadcasters. It replaces the existing code and comes into effect on Monday, although it's already available to view on the GRA's website. The code's stated objectives are to establish standards on objectivity, impartiality, accuracy and prominence with regards to news and current affairs programs, political broadcasts and programs, and advertising relating to an election or referendum. Whereas many sections have been updated, some at GBC's request, broadcasters are still in certain circumstances obliged to invite to radio and television debates all parties represented in Parliament or which have contested an election in Gibraltar. This means there are scenarios in which both the GSLP and the Liberals, presently governing in an alliance, must be invited. Asked whether this applies to debates during an election campaign, the GRA has said it does not. Chief Executive Paul Canessa said that when Parliament is dissolved before a general election, GBC has to apply the code with greater sensitivity, in particularly in the case of parties. He says GBC must take into account the number of candidates that each party shall be presenting at the election. Therefore, if the GSLP and the Liberal Party present a joint slate under one manifesto, they should be treated as one party for the purposes of the election. Why the code requires that they sometimes be treated as separate parties after an election has not been explained. GBC requested an interview with Mr. Canessa, but he declined, saying the GRA board is of the view that it is not appropriate at this time. For his part, GBC's CEO, Gerard Deuma, said that although GBC continues to have reservations regarding undue prominence issues arising out of the updated document, the corporation is obliged to abide by the code as introduced by the GRA. We'll be back with more of this week's news after the break.
Join us on Saturday the 9th of May at the Tercentenary Sports Hall for the 2015 edition of the Gibraltar International Song Festival. 14 songs from around the world have made it to the finals and will be sung live on the night, while the highly acclaimed Bjorn Again will be performing a string of ABBA hits, including songs from Mamma Mia live on stage.
Mamma Mia, here I go again.
Tickets are priced at £10 and are available from the Gibraltar Tourist Office. It's bigger, it's better. Don't miss the Gibraltar International Song Festival 2015.
Thank you for the music, the songs I'm singing.
The war will be over soon. And the world will be full of bright promises. And the city of New York will lead the way in promises as well as dangers.
Feeling all right, Kevin?
Why would I be feeling all right looking at a dead child?
Welcome back. Lord Greville Janner, a free man of the city of Gibraltar, has been suspended from the Labour Party. However, he will not stand trial for alleged sexual offences on children because of the severity of his state of dementia. The 86-year-old peer faced allegations of abuse relating to residents in Leicestershire children's homes in the 1970s and 1980s. The allegations were made by more than a dozen individuals. The UK's Crown Prosecution Service has decided that Lord Janner is unfit to stand trial because of the advanced state of his dementia. This decision is to be reviewed by a High Court judge. Lord Janner received the freedom of the city of Gibraltar in February 2012, following a unanimously supported motion in Parliament. The Gibraltar government says it will not be reconsidering his status as a free man of the city. The former Spanish Minister for the Economy and Taxation, Rodrigo Rato, has been arrested over suspected fraud and money laundering regarding his personal wealth. His Madrid home was searched by Spanish authorities. Mr. Rato has denied having secret funds hidden away in Gibraltar and the Virgin Islands. Mr. Rato, also former director of the International Monetary Fund, is reportedly one of 705 individuals being investigated by the Spanish anti-money laundering agency CEPLAC. Mr. Rato is also being investigated for fraud over his time as chief executive of the Spanish bank Bankia. Asked whether he had applied to the Spanish government's 2012 tax amnesty, Mr. Rato simply said he would not discuss his private financial affairs with the press. Gibraltar has climbed 8 spots in the Global Financial Centres Index to 45th place. However, with 82 countries ranked, the rock is still in the bottom half of the table. It places ahead of the Isle of Man, Guernsey, Jersey, Monaco, Rome and Madrid, but behind the British Virgin Islands, Bermuda, Luxembourg and Zurich. The index provides profiles, ratings and rankings for financial centres, drawing on 2 separate sources of data, instrumental factors and responses to an online survey. The reputation of the world's traditional financial centres remains unchanged, with New York remaining in first place and London second. But Hong Kong and Singapore are said to be narrowing the gap in third and fourth. The Electoral Registration Officer Paul Martinez has emphasised that citizens who fail to send in their registration forms will not be able to vote at the forthcoming general election. With less than 2 months to go before the draft register is published, a significant number of potential voters have still not returned their forms. Stephen Nish asked Mr. Martinez, who will be the returning officer for the election, how preparations were going.
Oh, they're progressing smoothly, Stephen. We've been working at it, as you know, from January, from the beginning of this year, and we've got a team here who's been working very hard at it. We're progressing. We've got the vast majority of people have now sent in their registration forms, but as you know, there's always that element which leaves it up to the very last minute, and that is what we're now actually trying to target and get them to register to vote. As you know, we've already sent out our electoral agents, registration agents, to go around the whole of Gibraltar chasing these people up, and we will continue to do so for the next couple of weeks. We're now approaching the stage where we now have to consolidate and prepare a draft register, which I intend to publish on the 1st of June.
You were saying that the vast majority of people have returned their forms, but obviously there must be a significant number that haven't done so because you're asking them to do so in this interview. What's the proportion, in fact? How many people have yet to return them?
I can't quantify it because I haven't got the figures with me, but there is a proportion there which is similar. It's happened similarly to previous exercises where we've been trying to compile registers. There is a proportion who take for granted, they say, oh, I filled it out 2 years ago for the European or 4 years ago for the last register of electors, and they think that because they did it then, they are automatically registered this time round. Let me take this opportunity again to stress that that is not the case. A new register has been prepared, and the register starts with a blank piece of paper, and we then start to add people as the forms come back in. If you don't send the form back in, that means that we do not know that where you're registered, you're not registered, and you will not be able to vote at the forthcoming general elections. It is that clear.
2 new rigid-hulled inflatable boats have been christened by HM Customs and will form part of the assets of the newly created Marine Unit. Procured at a cost of just over £500,000, the RIBs will be used for surveillance, interception and enforcement of the law at sea. The RIBs were christened Seeker and Searcher at a ceremony this morning which saw them blessed by Monsignor Paul Bert. The new boats will aid in surveillance, strategic patrols, covert operations and enforcement, particularly of the Imports and Exports Act and the Tobacco Act, and can also be used to support other law enforcement agencies such as the Royal Gibraltar Police.
These RIBs are part of the consequence of a root and branch review that the Customs Department underwent in 2013 and 2014 in partnership with all the stakeholders, with the unions, with the staff, obviously with the government. And as a result of that, there was a roadmap that led to the modernisation of the Customs Department. And one small part of that modernisation package is actually the introduction of a purpose-built 24/7 Marine Unit.
At a cost of around £550,000, the 8-metre-long RIBs are top of the range.
Well, it means a huge investment on behalf of the government in the Customs Department marine resource. It means they have the ability to be out at sea for longer, to be more effective at sea, and to have the tools that they need to do the job that we ask them to do. But also, in particular, it means that we are ensuring the safety of the officers, who now aren't having to rely on confiscated RIBs of the drug smuggler variety, and drug smugglers aren't too often cared about health and safety issues and whether they're safe out at sea. And you look at these vessels, they have cabins, they're very much along the model that you've seen us procure for the RGP, and I'm very proud that after our election we took a decision to resource our law enforcement agencies at sea so that they had the resources which were in particular safe for officers, and this is us delivering for the Customs Department as we previously delivered for the RGP.
These RIBs have been manufactured in Italy, and the actual company that actually manufactures these RIBs, they've been around since the early 70s, and they've got a whole host of over 50 world records, speed records in all classes. They've got stepped hulls which are optimum for our use. They're very, very fast. They're over 60 knots. They've got unique, innovative collars in that these collars, we slide them in rather than affix them permanently to the vessels. That makes it for easy removal, easy maintenance.
The Marine Unit will now undergo a period of training, with the new RIBs expected to go into operation in about 2 months' time.